Hello, and welcome to the Joe DeLisi Financial Advisor Podcast. I am Joe, and this is episode 6. And this one is titled The Top 3 Things You Can Control in Your Financial Life to Help Lead You to Retirement. You know, as we've discussed before in blog posts, podcasts, etc., the goal of virtually every one of my clients is to be able to retire to a good life for the rest of their life someday. Now, you know, there's different categories of clients that I've got. My high-income corporate clients, as an example, they dream of the day when they no longer need to get on that flight overseas to land the deal or tour the plant. My physician clients, they know that the demands on them physically, mentally, emotionally, you know, those things that the world of medicine places on them, they just can't handle it forever. You know, when they're young and they're first out, 30s, mid-30s, late 30s, they can handle it. But by the time they get into the late 40s, early 50s, it really wears on them. And my business owner clients, they're probably the most unique ones because they know they love their business. They view it really almost as a child. But just like a child, there's a 24-hour worry that comes with owning a business. And it's just not something that they really want to do forever in most cases. And so everybody is basically headed towards the road of retirement. Or, I mean, I'll call it exit planning a lot of times. It sounds fancy, but it really is just another word for retirement. And to do that well, it just requires attention to so many different areas of the financial life. And the variables are so numerous that we almost don't even have time or room to list them all because this is supposed to be like a 10-minute podcast. But the bottom line is relatively simple. Cash flow is desired. An increasing level of cash flow coupled with benefits such as like protection against long-term medical care, lawsuit, that kind of stuff. Those are really the essence of a good retirement life. The other thing to mention is you got to build it in such a way that you never run out of money, that you never worry about running out of money. So to make it succinct, I'd like my clients to think of retirement as basically this. And if you're in a spot, you can write it down. This would be a good thing to write down. We want to create maximum cash flow such that you can spend and enjoy that cash flow, that money, without the fear of running out. And you can pass that money to any legacy to whom you choose and at a time of your choosing. So maximum cash flow, you spend and enjoy that money without the fear of running out, and you pass that money to whom you choose at a time of your choosing. That would be like the greatest definition of retirement that I could come up with. But how do you get there? And there are probably many paths to the end zone. Sure, there's rules of thumb, but there's a lot of ways to get there. But like in life, you know, I'd say, I guess anything works, but what works for you? Everyone's different. Every family has a different family dynamic. Everyone's got a different medical history, marital situation, lifestyle desires, etc. And so generally, my industry has convinced people that the primary path to retirement is through the stock market and stock market returns. Look, as we've discussed in prior podcasts, I love the stock market. It's where my mind goes to most of the time. I study it like I study baseball. I'm kind of a nerd with it. And I genuinely see really one of my key jobs is to educate my clients on how markets actually work and how to get the best returns on their money given, you know, risk level over long periods of time. But, and this is a big but, no one controls the returns they get. And the title of this podcast is about control. You know, what are the top 3 things you can control? You cannot control your returns. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. So, you know, it's been said that the primary determinant of portfolio performance is behavior. There are studies, you know, there's Vanguard studies, lots of studies out there that will suggest that behavioral finance is the biggest determination of your portfolio return. I understand where they're coming from. I mean, I've said that myself, but really it's not even that. In truth, it's a factor so totally out of your control that it's laughable. So what is it? All right, so be ready. The primary determinant of portfolio performance is the year you were born. So good luck controlling that. So let's look at a case study here. Let's take my dad. My dad was born in 1952. And let's say that by the time he was able to, you know, kind of stabilize his career and begin to actually invest, let's just say it was 1980. So if he began to invest in the S&P 500 in 1980, just say January 1st of 1980, and he never deviated from his course, no matter what, no matter how scary the world got around him. So think back to those days, if you were around, you've got nuclear war fears with the Soviet Union. You've got the 1987 stock market crash. You've got the savings and loan crisis. You've got 9/11. If he was able to get through all of that, his return was about 11.4%. So was he lucky or was he good? And he was lucky. How do I know that? Let's compare it to, my dad starting investing in 1980. Let's say he went for about 30 years. Let's compare it to his dad. So this would be my grandfather. What if my grandfather did the same thing? So my grandfather was born, so my dad's dad was born in 1927. So what if he began to invest in 1927 and he invested for 30 years? But he started in, say, 1955. And he ended in 1985. Same deal. Like, he did the S&P no matter what. So no matter how scary, Korea was getting, or how hot Vietnam got, or the Kennedy assassination, or really any of the assassinations back then, Martin Luther King, the Nixon resignation, massive inflation, et cetera, like that all fell within that 30-year time period. If my grandfather would have invested over 30 years and never deviated, he would have received a 7.5% rate of return. Same market, same time period, same time, different time period based on the year they were born. So even though he invested over a long amount of time in the same market, same behavior, my grandfather would have received about 65% of the return of my dad through no fault of his own. It was just because he was born in a different year. That was it. I couldn't control it. But wait, there's more. So let's compare my dad and maybe my granddad, but let's go back to my dad because he got a pretty good rate of return in our hypothetical study here. Let's look at my own investing history. Okay, so now I was born in 1974. I began in the investment industry in 1998. Same year I graduated from college. Let's say I invested in the S&P that entire time, all the way up to the beginning of this year. Okay, I stayed the course no matter what. So even though I was broke in 1998, I still invested. I went through Y2K, I went through 9/11, I went through Brexit, the global war on terror, election chaos, pandemics, inflation, bank failures more recently. I went through all of that, but I stayed the course. My return so far, hasn't been 30 years yet, but so far from 98 until the beginning of this year, my return so far would have been 7.7%, so closer to my grandfather than my dad. And here's the kicker. Both my return and my grandfather's returns would have come with a higher risk measurement if we measure it by standard deviation, right? Just measurement of movement. So both me and my grandfather got lower returns at a higher risk than my dad. Now, again, it's not the exact same time periods. I did 37 years for my dad actually in this study and only 26 years for me. But if I go back and look at it, 26 years in, my dad was actually at 12.2%. So it was even higher than he ended up. In other words, if I look at the exact amount of time that my dad would have invested, 26 years, because I've only had 26 years so far, he had a significantly higher return at less risk than I did. Was he lucky or was he good? He was lucky. He was born in 1952, and he decided not to born me until 1974. Right, totally out of my control. So what's the point? Well, I'm really trying to get you to see that none of us are in control really of very much at all. I mean, we all know that in life. But in my world, articles and TV segments, I mean, they speak of stock returns as if we're all entitled to them, as long as we simply put the money in the right stock at the right time. But we know no one can predict the future. Like, we all know that. But we want to believe that for some reason people can in the stock market. I mean, really, an entire passive investing industry popped up in response to the fact that nobody can, quote unquote, beat the market, especially not over any length of time, and especially not net of fees and taxes, which, by the way, I excluded both fees and taxes in all the numbers I gave you so far. But that passive investing in the S&P 500, if you do that and you somehow magically get the return you want, that's a myth too. You don't know if you're going to get 7 or 12 or 10 or 5 or 0. There have been 15-year time periods, 15 in the S&P 500 where there was no return whatsoever. So not all time periods are the same. I mean, these are just highlighted by examples of my granddad, my dad, and me. So, okay, great. That's what we can't control. What can we control? These are the top 3 things we can control, and my successful clients do this. In no particular order, here's what they are. Number 1, savings rates. I have no idea what ultimate return on my capital I'm going to get. And I don't know the order in which the returns are going to come. But I can absolutely control how much I save and where I save it. So for me, the minimum savings rates for retirement success is 20%. That's the deductible. That's just the entry point. You got to be saving 20% of your own cash flow every year or more. So not matches, not money from your corporation, let's say, or your physician group. The match on 401ks, et cetera, deferred comp, none of that stuff counts. But in fact, really better yet, save 25% plus. That's really where I want people, because you really can't screw it up if you do that. Now, I understand it's tough to do. I get it. I have 6 kids. And we operate very differently than a lot of my own clients in terms of how we live our lives so that we can hit our savings rates. We've got a great life, but savings, giving, and taxes, those come first. So how much really you save, how much is way more important than the rate of return or even where your money goes. I've yet to have a client save 20% or more every year and not hit their financial or retirement goals. It's just magic. It works. Number 2, protect the ground you've taken. None of the projections I run for you are guaranteed. Several things can rob you of that mountain chart that we all like to look at. Some things we can't control, like a job loss or maybe divorce. But many, many things we can protect against, like a lawsuit from a car accident or a death or a disability. If you're a high income earner, you should be buying significant car, home, and liability policies to protect against lawsuits, because it just steals your future. In addition, the ownership of high levels of long-term disability insurance, maximum amounts of life insurance protection, that's what I call, quote, the cost of doing business, unquote. Really, as a successful person in America, you got to protect your future. That good life in retirement must not only come if everything works perfectly, because it ain't ever going to work that way. Number 3, behavior. You knew I'd sneak that one in, right? I'm a stickler for correct behavior. You can't lose weight and keep it off if you don't behave in the kitchen. You can't get better at a sport if you don't show up for practice consistently. You can't be a successful investor or have a successful balance sheet if you behave poorly. So what does that mean? In essence, it means these 3 things. You can't, well, really there's 4. You can't speculate and gamble. And that means you can't track record invest. You can't market time. You can't have a lack of patience. And of the 3, I think the lack of patience has destroyed more balance sheets in 26 years that I've seen than anything else. People just have a hard time sticking to a plan, whether it be a diet, a workout regimen, or really anything that requires time. So in another podcast, we'll dive deep into those destructive tendencies. But for today, I want you to keep in mind the top 3 things that you can control in your balance sheet: savings rates, protection, and behavior. You focus on those 3 things first, your odds of success go up significantly. So that's all for today. As always, please like and subscribe. Don't forget the show notes. That's where you can get a quick analysis on your situation based on just a few questions you answer, and as well as the ability to schedule some time with me if you'd like. Okay, you guys all know what time it is now. It's compliance time. So here we go. Registered representative, financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PASS, OSJ, 5280 Carroll Canyon Road, Suite 300, San Diego, California, 92121, 619-684-6400. Security products and advisory services offered through PASS, member of FINRA, SIPC, financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PASS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PASS or Guardian. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC. California Insurance Number, license number OD34103. This podcast is for informational purposes only and not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated or endorsed by PASS, Guardian, or Westpac Wealth, and opinions stated are their own. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. All investments and investment strategies contain risk and may lose value. This material is intended for general use. By providing this content, Park Avenue Securities, LLC, and your financial representative are not undertaking to provide investment advice or make a recommendation for a specific individual or situation, or to otherwise act in a fiduciary capacity. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are unmanaged, and one cannot invest directly in an index. 2024-169237 expires February 2026.